Hey. Live stream is up. Okay. I will call to order this regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. This is as well our annual organizational meeting, and we will be having our public hearing on the 2025-2026 village budget. Do we have any changes to the agenda at this time?
I do have one change to include another conversation about solar energy for the village.
Joanna, you'd send an email about, remind me.
Union Street.
That's right. Union Street. Okay, anything else? Okay. I'm going to move right along because we do have a relatively lengthy agenda. So we will move into the annual organizational meeting portion of our agenda. There are two parts which we will need to approve. The board will need to approve by resolution. The first include mayoral appointments subject to board approval. And then the second part will be procedural aspects of the board, which we renew every year, including meeting procedures, our FOIL policy, policies with respect to attendance at schools and conferences, public works agreements, our procurement policy, which we revised last year, I believe, and our investment policy. So for the first portion of the annual organizational meeting agenda, we have mayoral appointments, which include Ben Carver, Deputy Mayor, trustee commission positions, Joanna Haynes with Police, Marsha Horn, Fire, Ben Carver, EMS, Ben Darfler, DPW, Water and Sewer. We have liaisons to outside organizations, which includes myself as the current chair of TCOG, Ben Darfler as the alternate, myself as the current chair of the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium, Jessica Giles as the alternate, Trumansburg Area Chamber of Commerce, Joanna Haynes with myself as the alternate, Cuba Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, Ben Darfler, the Youth Commission, Ben Carver, and the Three Falls Local Development Corporation, myself and Ben Carver as the two appointees. We have advisory committees of which the village is member. Advisory committees that we have established as a village. Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Revision Committee, Ben Darfler is the chair. The Street Tree Advisory Committee, Ben Carver is the chair. And the Events and Tourism Committee, Jessica Giles is the chair. Village officers appointed for the following fiscal year include Jessica Giles as village clerk treasurer, Jess Weber as the deputy clerk and deputy treasurer, Jessica Giles as the records management officer, Chief Joe Nelson as the police records access officer, Jessica Giles as the budget officer, both Jess Giles and Jess Weber as receiver of taxes and deputy receiver of taxes, respectively. Tom Myers remains our code enforcement and zoning officer. Tom Myers as well is our fire inspector. Guy Crow of Thaler and Thaler remains the attorney for the village. Tompkins Community Bank remains our official bank and depository. The Ithaca Journal, Trumansburg Free Press, and Tompkins Weekly remain our official newspapers for the purpose of public notices. We have a vacancy in the position of village historian. If anyone within the sound of my voice or watching the recording is interested, please let me know. Keith Hannon and Michael Darfler are the village appointees to the Youth Commission, and David Allen is our village arborist. Planning Board, there's one new appointment. James Lynch of Wig Street has graciously accepted the position of planning board member, replacing Joe Kuchar, who chose not to renew his term. I do want to thank Joe for his service on the planning board, as well as on the comprehensive plan and zoning revision committee. I know he was extremely or highly engaged in his membership on both boards. So thank you, Joe. And Jimmy Lynch will be the new appointee with a 5-year term ending in 2030. Zoning Board of Appeals, there are no new appointments. Michael Schlossberg's most recent term ended at the beginning of the month, and he has agreed to a 5-year reappointment. Marriage officers are myself and Deputy Mayor Ben Carver. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to accept all village appointments as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Just the friendly amendment that Keaton resigned. So there's a vacancy on.
So we have a vacancy in the position of village historian and one of our seats on the youth commission, if anyone is interested. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to the second half of our organizational meeting, we have our date for regular meetings, which remain the second and fourth Mondays of each month, unless canceled. We will have to, Jess, if you'll make a note, we'll have to pick a date for meetings for the second Mondays in October and November, as those traditionally fall on government holidays. No changes to our rules for special meetings, quorums, executive session, agenda, voting, minutes, order of business, FOIL, attendance at schools and conferences, public works agreements, procurement policy, and investment policy all remain the same. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the second half of the organizational meeting items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions?
Notice there's only one listed for May. Is that intentional or did we just miss one? The 26th is
Memorial.
Memorial Day, so we're not gonna.
Skip right past it.
Great. I won't be in the country, so it works for me.
Any other items of note? Hearing none, then all in favor of approving the second portion of the organizational agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thus ends our annual organizational meeting portion of our regular monthly meeting. Which brings us to our public hearing on our proposed 2025-2026 budget. The budget has been posted online. The public hearing was noticed for tonight. Copies of the budget have been available online and in the village office. And so I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on our proposed 2025-2026 village budget.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are now in our public hearing for our proposed 2025-2026 village budget. We have no members of the public present in person. We have a couple of members of the public present online. If you would like to say anything joining us online, you will need to use the raise hand feature. Actually, I think we know everyone, so I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. So if anyone has any comment, members of the public have any comment on the proposed village budget for this upcoming fiscal year?
So I'll just note, in case anyone feel free to interject, but just in addition to what Roy said in terms of the availability of the budget, that we talked about it at the State and Village, talked about it at several meetings for the last several months. It's hard to overemphasize, I think, how proactive we've been as far as putting this out there and how long a process this is every year. So I think just worth saying again, if anyone has any comment, I would love to hear it, but I just thought I'd throw that in while we had a moment of pause.
You know, I'll just say, we've mentioned in the past, we are able to keep village tax rate the same for the I believe the 7th consecutive year, although that is still an increase in costs to taxpayers due to increased assessments. We're doing what we can. Yes, Cynthia.
Yeah, I just got on to say, thank you. I have been paying attention, and the budget process is excellent. So it's a lot to weigh out. I know with the EMS, I've been following it and still paying attention to make it all work out. So I appreciate it. Did the funds come in for the federal funds for the EMS expansion, for the new site? Or is that too early to, I mean, I didn't hear if they came in yet.
So it's a reimbursable grant. So once we begin construction, we'll be able to begin submitting for reimbursement.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments from anyone joining us online?
There are no written comments.
Okay, unless Cynthia wants to sneak in one more comment. And then I would entertain a motion to close our public hearing on the proposed 2025-2026 village budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So with that then, I would entertain a motion to adopt the proposed 2025-2026 village budget for the fiscal year beginning June 1.
So moved.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. And thank you everyone for all of your many hours of work on the budget. Which brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is our first public comment period. Any member of the public would like to comment on something other than village budget, although I guess you could comment on village budget again if you wanted to. So if there's no public comment, then we'll move on to item number 6, which is reports from representatives. And we are joined by Annie Corman from the Tompkins County Legislature. Ann.
Thank you, Mayor Rorden. A couple things. We added at the airport, we added a flight to Dulles, Washington that started couple weeks ago, and it's going twice a week. It was pretty popular when we had it before, and it'll probably increase in frequency after they book up some flights on a regular basis. And we still have flights to JFK daily. And also having to do with the airport, the company Green Spot is putting in 2 electric vehicle chargers, and they're 200 kilowatt fast chargers, which can service 4 cars at a time. And so that'll be happening in the next couple of months. And we're getting a small amount for revenue, 5%, but they're doing the hookup to the power lines and all the infrastructure. So we're glad to have, those electric chargers there. And as most people, well, probably at least the elected officials know, but for other folks watching, if you don't have an electric car, it can be a challenge trying to charge, excuse me, charge it. If you plug it in at home, it's into like a 15 amp outlet. It could take 2 days to charge your car fully. And with the so that's called a level 1 charger. Level 2 charger is what they have at the town of Ulysses. So maybe take half a day, 4 to 6 hours to charge your car. But with these faster chargers, level 3, which are anywhere from 150 kilowatts on up, then you can charge your car half an hour, 40 minutes at the most if your car is pretty completely empty. So it's real great benefit. And I don't know if they reached out to you, Green Spot did, but I know people have been saying to me in the community, they're hoping that there's more fast chargers in the community. And February sales tax report is in, and it's a little better than sometimes it's been recently. There was an increase year over year of 7.6% for the county, and year to date for the county, up 6.91%. Municipalities on average were up 6.68%. Year to date, 8.17%. And went to a housing summit sponsored by Cornell. And so one of the big takeaways was they just kept saying that we need to look at all different options for housing. A lot of people say, it has to be one or the other. But folks from out of town were pretty impressed with the Village Grove development because most people hadn't heard of something like that where it's mixed income, mixed rental, and for sale. So people keep saying they want a tour of that and to talk to INHS. So anyway, I'm always proud to be telling people about the great development there. And we did, switching gears a little bit, we did a resolution at the county requesting that the state the PSC, what's the name for PSC? The organization that oversees NICEAG, the Public Service Commission, to do an investigation into NICEAG because we've been hearing so many complaints about billing, lag time on repairs, maintenance, response in emergencies, things like that. So we asked for an investigation. Even at the county, we've had erroneous billings. Anyway, and I think, yes, the town of Enfield also adopted a similar resolution at one of their last meetings. And you might have heard county legislator Susan Curry resigned from the legislature. And she took a position as the interim director at the Tompkins County Library as that director had left. So we're going to be doing a search. She's taking a temporary position there. And so we'll be doing a wide search for a new director over the next few months. And there'll be a special election to fill her position at the county the last 6 months. And that'll be held the same day as the primary on June 22nd, I believe that is. And we are having our next budget meeting on April 29th. So we're going to start to get down to brass tacks, as they say. And hopefully we'll have some more information coming out of that. But we are looking at, all of our different revenue streams and which ones eventually come from the federal government. So we can be aware of trying to be prepared, which is very hard, but at least aware of any where we could have funding cuts. We've had just one already from the health department with some interns that were helping us track some data. That program was just cut, and we're trying to see what we can do to help carry on the program that they're doing. And that's all I have.
Any comments or questions for Ann?
I know 3 people that flew from Ithaca to Dulles this weekend and back, so thanks.
My brother's in town.
And his brother's in town from
He wishes he had.
Yeah, I always suggest to people, especially with this one, if you're traveling somewhere around the state, or around the country, if you're flying, or even international, you can sometimes do a jumping off point in Ithaca, which is really nice to just have somebody drop you off at the airport, and not have to leave your car in Syracuse for a week or two.
Well, thank you, Annie. Appreciate it. Let's see. Item number 7, consent agenda. We have meeting minutes from last month, March the 10th and March 24th, and then we have our abstract of claims for the month. General fund abstract totaling $572,228.63. Pages in that one. Water fund abstract totaling $71,007.43. Sewer fund abstract totaling $39,948.35. And trust and agency totaling $6,148.90. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or need to remove anything? Consent agenda.
But, there was a couple updates between the presentation and now, but nothing substantial.
No other comments. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as minorly revised, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 8, board member reports. I don't have anything except to note that we have need of an executive session later. Depending on how, because this agenda is pretty full, assuming we get through everything. Always a big assumption. Then towards the end of the meeting, we can decide if we need a second meeting this month. We can always wait if there's something pending. We can always cancel the meeting if we don't need it. Meeting is scheduled for the 28th. So we can think about that between now and the end of the meeting. Fire and still have USTACC, Marsh. I'm
No,
gonna change that. Fire.
I might actually be more available for that.
Oh, there you go.
Who knows? I wasn't around for the meeting, but I did make contact with Matt. There were 54 calls last month and 25 due to the huge windstorm that we had that all seemed to come within a matter of hours of each other. He did forward to me an invoice. They would like to get the overhead doors maintained for the fire department. He said it's been some time since that has happened. So he sent me a quote. Where did it go? Yeah, oh, there it is. And it's Jensen Overhead Door. I guess this is the company that we've had do it before. I don't know if you would require him to get more quotes for that, or if we're just gonna go with, this is not opening up.
It is, so we had to do it before.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
think they did the installation, so this is normally have them do the repair.
Can I get that to open up for some reason? It's within my, I just wanted to run it by you. It is within my purview to approve it without board approval because it's under the amount, but I really wanted to give it to you, but I can't right now.
I think if it's below the procurement policy.
Yes.
Approval amount, then I think it's fine.
Yes, okay. If nobody has any problem with him just going with that particular company and not getting some more quotes for that, and that just will not open. Okay, so that is the only thing that I have. They are working too with Interlaken on doing the fire lines. And he said it doesn't seem like there's gonna be any huge adjustment or anything. It'll just kind of be he once they do everything, so there won't be any drastic changes in that, but they're working with that with them. Other than that, I have nothing else. Wish my computer would work.
Any questions for Marcia? EMS Youth Street Tree Advisory Committee.
So I'll start with you. We have a new hire. Now that everybody, but I believe they were just hired for the town board of trustees meeting. Very excited for the start. That's really fabulous news. Program manager will be back in schools and back running programs. So very excited for that this summer. We also, Youth Commission approved a resolution in support of the town accepting the land donation on Cold Springs Road. Obviously, the town is taking their own part in that. I don't think that this board necessarily needs to weigh in, but I was very happy at the Youth Commission as a group has seen more needs assessments and surveys regarding recreation in the town and youth programming in the town. Really, anyone ever needs to see in their lifetime, frankly. So it felt like the appropriate, an appropriate subject to weigh in on, even though as a group, the commission generally doesn't weigh in like that publicly, but it felt like sort of extenuating circumstance where we're happy to do it. I don't have anything on trees except what I will mention later under new business. For EMS, let's start with the call report. 11 calls in Covert, 1 in Enfield, 1 in Hector in the mutual aid district, 4 in Hector or COA proper, 5 in the village of Interlincoln, 4 in the city of Ithaca, 2 in the town of Ithaca, 7 in Mecklenburg, 1 in Odessa, 21 in Trimsburg, village of, and then 22 listens, total 79 calls, which is a little bit low for us. Marches tends to be low than that. When you look outside and you see the rain, I think everyone kind of understands. Everything's a little bit mellow for this month, or for last month, rather. Moving on to, there's a couple things in the Dropbox. First is approval for Aladdin. I don't know exactly how to say it. This is essentially a software that would replace Went to Work for our EMS department. This is something Joel has been working on. Well, Joel has been working on, and I've been encouraging him to work on for quite some time. Went to Work, everyone's familiar with Went to Work. But it's pretty miserable work. It sort of does, I don't know, I would say 60% of the tasks well. And then anything that kind of goes outside of that, it starts to fumble a little bit, and it's very clumsy. So this program is something that's really built for police work, for emergency responders. Joel is really fond of it. I, to be perfectly frank, have not done much looking into it. I don't live in a first response world, so this is something I very much defer to Joel. As far as our procurement goes, the number is something that I would be very happy, and as far as I know, very willing and able to sign off on myself, but just ask that I bring this to the board and go ahead for approval. So here.
So in part because it's an annual renewing contract, they're self-renews.
You can approve the spend, but we have to have board approval for me to sign the contract.
Or for Joel to sign
Well, yeah, we can approve anyone to sign the contract.
is the specific ask for today.
Okay. So then would you like to move that we approve our EMS administrator signing this contract with LN Tech for their,
So you approved.
that's how it's spelled, that's what I'm sticking with. With an annual subscription in the amount of $2,592 a year.
Yeah, so
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I noticed that they also Part of their specialty also includes police. So, and I did briefly talk to the chief about this earlier today, if it would be something that potentially could be useful for police. I think it would be if we could maybe work to do a demo for.
Like that's perfect. Yeah, we get it started and then Joel can, share and see how it goes.
Yes, I think, I don't know if chief knows exactly, I don't think chief knows exactly what he's looking for, but he would like to see what it looks like compared to what he's using now.
Well, they use when to work, right?
So. He says that whatever he's using, he's trying to get off of that,
Yeah.
so.
I think it's a universal condition.
Sounds like so.
Hopefully this is better. It's never gonna be perfect, nothing serves exactly reduced it, it's just what it is, but yeah, I'll explain it. Maybe a month in or something, once he's kind of got his.
Yeah, yes, nothing, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't have to be done right away. But that would be great.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, and all in favor of approving or authorizing rather, Joel Fay to sign this contract with Alad Tech, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay,
So the next one is somewhat similar from a procurement standard. This one is the first arriving piece. I should look what number these are. 8.C2 in the Dropbox. But this is first arriving is what it says at the top of the invoice. This is essentially a company that compiles the data from like 911, from presumably, if we can integrate it, the idea is that it will share all the staffing information up to date from Alatic. And compile all of that into one dashboard. So right now, when you walk into the EMS offices or the fire offices, actually they're both the same. There's basically a TV displaying, the spill data. Right, so what the calls are, what's going on. From that perspective, this will compile all of that data with ongoing staffing, with status. So where if someone's responding, where they are, if you're about to respond, it can show, street view of the site, that kind of thing. The idea is basically up to date data on any calls that are happening, so you can see it visually when you're in there, which again, sort of happening, but not in a way that's functional. So this would be, I guess it's $799 a year. So 800 give or take. It is a yearly subscription. But again, that's kind of so looking for, and I guess I would just move that we approve Joel signing this contract and also the expense. For the year.
do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? None, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Good.
So the last piece that to discuss is a consideration of a sick time transfer. I will mostly defer this to executive session. I don't want to talk about the personal details in public, but I do just want to know for the public's sake that our employees are awarded a certain amount of sick and benefit time. We do allow from time to time with board approval on any given occasion, again with board approval, for them to sometimes in sort of exigent circumstances, we'll say, also donate that time to fellow employees. But again, I don't want to talk about the details of the personal details, so we'll go into executive session for that and then come back up and talk about it. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Ben? DPW, water, sewer, CPZR and farmers market.
All right, I will keep it rather brief. There's not much to talk about. DPW water sewer wise, we've got an annual plan sorted out with a quarterly breakdown, and we're kind of moving through it. There's a lot of good work that the DPW is going to do this week or this year. So maybe one thing I will talk about briefly is one of the ongoing projects is surveying all of the service lines for water in the village to identify them as lead or not lead, or copper, not copper, so on. We have information on quite a few of them. We also are lacking information on quite a few of them. I actually have a spreadsheet that I'm working with Dusty to get in a good spot before we put up on the website so people can actually see that inventory. The way you actually, the best practice for identifying what the unknown service lines are is to actually physically look at them, dig out, look at the pipe, figure out what it's made out of. As you can imagine, that can be a lengthy and time consuming process if you go one by one with a backhoe and try and dig everything out. The better way of doing it is something called hydrovacking, which is basically using water to break up the dirt, sucking it out, looking at what's actually down on the ground. It's much more, it's less disturbance to the actual property than a backhoe, much quicker to go through, and they can kind of make more progress that way. Those are fairly expensive to purchase. The DPW has, with some great ingenuity, built their own in-house using a pressure washer and a shop vac, essentially. I mean, like industrial grade versions of these. And they've tested out a couple times. They've learned a lot. It's not in, perfect order that they want it to be, but they've got a vision and they're working towards it. So it's very interesting to see. And they have already found additional uses for all this equipment, and they're getting asks from surrounding municipalities, when can they start using it? So for themselves. So they're doing quite a job over there at the DPW. I now have certain members of the community telling me how proud and impressed they are with the DPW, where they have not been in the past. So nice to brag a little bit about what they're doing down there. Not much to update on CPZR either. We're slowly making progress on the commercial district. Maybe mid-year, we'll be able to look at an early draft of that, would be my goal. The update on farmers market, I'm going to be joining their meeting this Thursday to discuss. I think now is the time for them to really consider becoming a friend of the market nonprofit, to actually shift into their own entity with their own bank accounts, so they can move forward on a lot of the really wonderful projects that they're interested in and trying to put forward, that really just cannot happen effectively under the umbrella of a municipality. I don't want to get in their way. I think what they're trying to do is incredible, but it just can't happen as a village. It's a lot of trying to solicit donations and use that to run, benefit programs for people that are looking to, supplement their income, supplement their income while buying local produce at the farmers market. Great programs, nearly impossible, if not just straight up impossible to do as a village. So I'm going to start that conversation with them on Thursday. I think there's interest, at least with some of the board leadership. I think they're also recently very much trying to move some really ingenious programs forward that are making it even more pressing to switch out from being a village entity. I would say that the market, in my proposal, is that the market would remain a village market. We would still have the market as the village. We would own the insurance for that. We would still contract with a market manager who would be there on site during the day. But all the stuff around it, the music, the advertisements, the social media, the other additional programs that they're looking to do that are really truly value add and wonderful programs, I think can be more easily broken off into its own nonprofit. And I think we can figure out how the day-to-day stays largely the same. We clarify a couple things of who exactly owns which part. I have run a couple numbers on the budget, and it actually breaks out pretty evenly, kind of 50-50 along those lines as well. So I think there's some opportunities. I don't imagine it's going to be a quick process, but I really do want to see them start moving in that direction. So we'll start that conversation on Thursday.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Anything, any questions?
Just, I approve. for a long time ago.
Yeah,
Very much mutually beneficial.
it's a really wonderful story arc. I mean, it started it as its own independent market. It struggled, it came under the village. We kind of incubated it, brought it back to health, and now it's ready to like spread its wings again. I think it's really, exactly. It's really a wonderful thing. I hope the market board sees it more in that framing. Then I think I don't want it to come across as we're cutting them loose in any way. I really think that they've grown big enough and have such energy and ideas that it makes more sense to go their own route.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. I would hope it's an empowerment situation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
right? I mean, that's certainly how I see it.
Yeah.
Right? They can do better.
Yeah. I think there's always struggles when you say go form your own entity and bank account. And there's some concerns there on like, what's the logistical lift for them? But I think it brings, so I hope that they see it brings a lot of benefit, specifically to the things they're trying to push forward.
That's not true.
Is he missing?
Oh.
Not to make your life any more interesting. Is there a possibility that this, if they go for it, that this organization could be much broader in its community scope to even wrap in things like taking care of T-Bird, that has at times had fundraising ideas?
I mean, logistically, like there's no reason why not. I think it's more about the people and their focus. The market board is largely market vendors, and I think they're very market focused. But you know, once there's a nonprofit there, is there an opportunity to encourage people to talk and discuss, and how might it make sense? Yeah.
Something that's been on my mind for a couple of years now. Had a conversation with Guy about something completely unrelated once, but I've realized that we have a lot of, I think probably many communities do, but we have a lot of not-for-profits in the community. And it feels like they're all very goal specific or niche oriented.
Mm.
And what we don't have is kind of a broader Friends of T-Bird, you know, kind of not-for-profit that can do kind of anything it wants community related without violating the charter, because it's not specific enough.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Okay, stay tuned on that one. Clerk treasurer. I'm sorry, police, Joanna.
That's okay, it's very true. Because I do not have the chief of police's reports this time around. I will have both for March and April and May. But I do, like I said earlier, I did talk to the chief about that, I'll check, and he's interested in that, he's looking at it. We did, and I can bring this up now, it's something that I discussed about bringing into old business, but Union Street. At this time, because of the new sidewalk and then the renovations on the other side going on, there's no parking signage at all right now, so people are just parking wherever they choose. So we discussed this back in, I think, December, January, and bringing it back up April, May to actually do something about it. And Chief did mention that it would be great to have something already done before Porch Fest, which is in June. So back then we talked about Union Street. At this time, Union Street has most parking on one side, on the conservatory side. It's very confusing and specific in the law, so I will not bring that up, but mostly on the conservatory side. And then 2 or 3 parking spots on the old Napa side. So the chief did mention that because of how narrow the street is at the top of the street, he would like to see no parking on both sides. We discussed this back in January and we thought about maybe continuing with the parking on one side of the street. So which side of the street would be more appropriate? Or maybe we do have no parking on either side, except for like the 2 that are next to the old Napa, and then I think there's 2, including a handicap parking on the OTTC side or conservatory side. And then I asked Jess to help me figure out how to rewrite that law so that we could actually adopt it in the next month. So I just wanted to get more opinion on that, if anybody has thought about it and would like to bring up some counters.
I'll say philosophically, I'd like to I don't mind having somewhat narrow roads. I don't mind it if it's slightly congested and slows people down. I know we struggle with parking, so I'll say those as like baseline. I think this is a lot of recapping what we said last time, like around that intersection specifically, there probably needs to be some breadth of space for people to get around. But I think there's unfortunately like a couple different intertwined pieces right now, part of which I know is that we have a lot of parking there because of the construction, and I have a hard time like,
If I interject,
yeah,
I suggest that we draw this out, because I think one of the things we ran into last time is that it's very difficult to describe sort of what we're talking about and trying to articulate. So
yeah.
maybe if we just pause and then try and draw the map, like this is what we mean by the west, north.
Okay.
Because the law is like, I forget the language, it's like the north.
Right.
west side to the driveway,
I could
to the-
Yeah,
project something up there if we'd like.
Yeah, I'm looking at the law, I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to actually having a map to look at, but I'm looking at the law, so basically from the stop sign by the bank in the phone company all the way up to the conservatory
It's parking.
is parking, with the exception of the handicap spot, yeah. On the, what I'll just refer to as the Napa side, there's no parking from the corner of Union and Cuba down to a point 115 feet from the intersection. So basically where the entrance to Napa used to be.
Where the park. Or the side.
And so now it looks like you can park on both sides of the street.
Right.
And what Chief suggesting that there be no parking on either side of Union from some point
On
up
the
to.
most narrow side, on the most narrow part of the street.
Right, for some measurement from basically from there to Cuba and Congress. Both sides of the street would have no parking for some amount of space.
Right,
And then it would become okay to park on both sides.
right, which currently it is okay to park on both sides where those buildings begin.
And I think last time we had tentatively resolved. And we didn't vote, but it seemed like the consensus last time was to basically eliminate parking on the inside of that turn from Congress down to Union.
So
But to
basically.
leave it open on either side.
And I think
Right.
Chief is saying he doesn't want it quite open on that side.
And I was
I mean, that's my
looking.
drive, so I would love, a spot or two.
So that's what I was gonna say, yeah, like I was looking at the street today, like. Out there today, and there's
Yeah.
nothing there that. Even shows that there's even a curb for people to park safely, like. which means that people can. Kind of park practically in the middle of the street and,
Well, it tends to be the opposite. I mean, they park on the sidewalk, right at the top. You know where I'm at, right? Like right at the intersection. So from there down, they tend to park in the grass, right? Like all the way off. The curb pushes people out. I mean, that's the problem. It used to be that you could kind of drive on the grass. It didn't matter. But now we're going to push it. See,
Is that what we're saying? Green, good?
So
Red bed.
currently, the way the law
Yeah.
reads,
Currently, this is all green here.
correct.
Right, it's all green all the way here. What we're saying is make this red. I think.
Right,
I would also.
that was
move
my
that,
understanding.
The red on the south. Move up to that pole at least.
Up to the pole down here. Oop, that's green now still.
He was saying shorten.
I would move this green line up to here.
Ah, so even more parking.
Wait,
oh, I would definitely not do that.
I definitely.
No,
I mean, so I think this is the conversation we were having last time, right? That I think. As Ben said, parking's at a premium. There is no place to park. Having lived in one of the apartments on Main Street. In the winter, there is literally no place to park.
Yeah,
but if you have both sides green, in that way, you literally only have space for one car to come through.
Yes.
And then you come up with the issue of right of way.
Right. Yeah, you definitely come up with that issue if no one uses. In general, in practice, this happens everywhere, like downtown Ithaca constantly. I mean, I think that.
Well, I would rather keep it the way that it is than do that.
Really?
Yes.
So just parking everywhere. I
No,
thought,
No,
this
there-
last time you highlighted as the issue, the interior corner from Congress down that you couldn't see.
The red is current, the long red is currently in the law.
That's what
No, but you know, wasn't your
to add more parking, absolutely not.
No, was that if there was parking on the interior of that corner, that northernmost green piece. Where Ben's,
The way that, no,
that
I
was
wouldn't go
your
that. far.
primary,
I
no, but
wouldn't-
that was your issue before, right?
Yes.
So I think we can eliminate that, I
So,
100% agree.
The chief, well, but the chief's proposal was to go all the way down to where the buildings are.
oh,
As
On the
red,
northern piece.
as red, yes,
On
on
the-
both sides,
oh,
Yeah, so I don't
So
think.
chief's
that-
idea was this,
yes.
I don't
which
think
I'm
that's-
not-
So just to be clear, currently, there is no red on.
Yes.
Right.
right,
Right.
Yeah.
I think some updating is necessary, because I'm totally compelled by your argument from our last meeting, that, like the interior of that turn.
Right,
Reduces visibility and, you know, people come around it too fast and it's just unsafe.
yes.
it's called clean shot.
I totally, like the visibility.
Shot map that I can draw.
But I think, I guess I'll just reiterate what I said before, that I think. Inconvenience while driving is not the same as a safety concern.
Okay.
And so as much as I, in general, would love to defer to the chief on sort of traffic, vehicle and traffic law, parking to me is more. Pressing as a policy, we need parking.
I understand that, but the people that are coming out of the conservatory are children. Even though we teach them not to go into the street. That doesn't necessarily mean that they follow the rules all the time, so the fact, safety wise, even though they may be using the sidewalk. Just like our own adults that will cross the street without being at a corner. Kids would do that too, and that is unsafe.
So I think that by making the street more narrow, we encourage and almost require slower driving, right? The inconvenience makes it safer. I mean, that is my driveway. I walk that with my 3-year-old every day. Like I'm 100% there with the safety concerns. But I think the inconvenience offered by this parking situation, I think is a benefit in terms of safety.
So from a V&T standpoint, and I don't want to speak for chief, but I will in this instance, from a V&T standpoint. Narrower streets do not equal safety.
What
From a
way?
legal standpoint,
Correct. So
does not equal safety, does not compute. Like what's the?
So from
the
a
linear
from a legal and enforceable standpoint. Someone is always,
From an important, I see what you're saying.
someone is always ticketable. And so if the kid isn't paying attention or the adult isn't paying attention, then who's at fault, right? So from a purely from ticketability and village liability. The perception of safety based on the fact that if you are a responsible driver, you will slow down, big if in that sentence, is not the same as legal law enforcement enforceability and potential liability for lack of.
Is there no stop sign there?
Correct. No.
Well, there is coming from
There's-
Cuba.
Right, I know there is coming
But the
from
other
Cuba, but the other
direction, no.
direction there isn't.
No. But so as a response though, my concern is not if you hit a child, can you give the driver a ticket, right? Like, I don't think that's. My concern would be, can you slow people down? And I think that comes primary.
My concern is, especially after last Tuesday, my concern is if someone hits a child and the village has poorly designed the parking, then the village is liable.
So I'll say
I
for,
feel like the not hitting children needs to come before all of the enforceability, all of the liability, all of those things.
You would think,
First is like slow down.
you would think,
No, I
but
do think- I think
but
that's
not,
wrong.
but not from a tort standpoint.
Can we
So
put a stop
ju-
sign there?
so yes, we can put stop signs there. I was gonna point out that the narrowest minimal 2-lane width is 16 feet wide for 2 lanes, which is something we're actually planning to trial out on Halsey Street as like a way to kind of try and slow things down. Who knows how accurate Google is, but you're not seeing this because I'm in a different window, but I'm trying to measure the width of the street there. It's 28 feet, 30 feet, something like that. So it's another 12 feet wider than the minimum amount for 2 cars to go by. I don't know how much a parking size is, but I think it's probably 6 feet or 6 feet feels about right. I think we're in the ballpark of having space for a legal 2-lane road. And to Ben's point, you can also have legal roads that are less than that. You have to allow for like pull-offs and this sort of thing, which we would maybe have with enough parking, and there's different ways of doing it, but I think we're not getting to a point where, you know, it's 8 feet between 2 cars and you have to inch forward one at a time. And the other thing to realize is if it is actually going to be fully packed all the time, most of the time, there's always a parking spot somewhere or another. You can kind of pull over, someone can pull through. There are ways that we as drivers figure out how not to run into each other because people are pretty incentivized not to hurt their own car, let alone anybody else. So I'm not too particularly worried about that. And I think to Ben's point, the thing that keeps everybody safe is going slower. If you get hit by a car that's going 50 or 30 because it can shoot straight up Union, you're going to be much worse spot than if it's going 15 because it had to weave between a couple of the cars.
I think making that thoroughfare, just to drive that point a little bit further home, the wider the road, the more it feels like this is a racehorse, this is faster. Right, I think that's to me, my biggest reservation here, is that if we make no parking there, there's now curbs on either side, it looks like a racehorse. It will be used like one, right, whatever our laws are, and to Rory's point, I mean, that doesn't remove. Like, if we make it look like a race course where you should drive 60, but then we have our speed limit at 30, then our liability is limited to a driver going 30, right? Like, I see that as an effective way to limit our liability, if that's true. But I do think there's more effective ways to get the results.
But we do have to have proper lane width. We cannot encroach on lane width with parking. So if the measurements, we have to measure it.
Right, if we have to make sure we're not going under 16 feet if we want to have it too,
Have
which I
we
think
ever
we're,
discussed having a stop sign from the other direction? So that you not only have to stop at Cuba, you also have to stop at Union. You just can't whip around there.
We've not entertained a stop sign going towards Cuba Street or Congress.
Right, but I'm saying coming from Congress down into Union. A stop sign right there,
Could put one there.
because that's a really odd intersection, just like Lake Street was. Like there never used to be a stop sign. On Lake Street
I'll send-
over the bridge.
send you all the nasty grams.
Yeah, there never used to be a stop sign there. And it's kind of a weird,
we briefly we discussed it. I don't remember why we didn't consider it. I'm not opposed to a stop sign there, but I also
Yeah.
don't live on that corner. There was some concern about backup coming out of the conservatory, but one other possibility, and I haven't talked to Chief about this either, but one other possibility is we could extend no parking on the phone company side of Union from Congress to that phone company driveway.
Send no parking.
So this would be no
Yes.
parking
To there.
to there. And then you could allow parking north to where you have that short red line.
The shorter red one.
So I don't know what they're gonna do for entrance to that back parking lot. I know there's going to be, I mean, it's a parking lot. I know there's gonna be entrance there somewhere.
The entryway is right by, you can kind of see the shadow of the pole, right by the U in Union Street, that third.
Yeah, I see
So
it.
that's the entryway right there. And so this, I believe, is what we talked about last. time. Well, a little bit, but yeah, where it was, I believe is what we talked about.
Oh, I don't know which shadow am I looking at, but that's fine. I can move it. To there-ish.
It was a little bit higher, but yeah, somewhere in there, wherever it falls.
Right.
Right now, the like choke point, for lack of a better word, is right where it says Union Street the second time, sort of right across from that driveway.
Mhm.
I don't know, I mean, I would love to go look at this with Joe, because I think him and I just have opposite perspectives here, right? One from a VNT perspective, and one from, right, like a community
Resident.
planning, parking. Right, and particularly as someone who lives on Main Street, I think this is why I have such strong feelings about it, and not to mention my children walking through there every day. I think it honestly is parking, but I'd be happy to talk with Joe and sort of go through it. I think it's worth looking at it without talking.
And I'm certainly sensitive to people who live on Main Street, but I think this will be particularly useful. For whatever happens to go in to the new Napa property, you know, they'll have some parking behind it, but being able to park on both sides of Union. Have some parking on both sides of Union. But I think no parking on the conservatory corner is important, with or without a stop sign.
I think we all agree on that part, the like interior of the turn is a visibility safety issue, right?
Yes.
I think we're all there.
I'm happy to have, you know, you or anyone else who wants to, you know, go look at the site. Joe, as far as amending the local law. It's April already, so if he wants this for Porch Fest, I don't know that that's gonna happen, so he may have to use his 30-day no parking sign power. Because even if we come to a consensus, we're looking at, we need the public hearing to amend the local law.
Oh, okay.
And so on, so.
It also took a little while, I think, for the signs. If I remember correctly, last time we amended this, it was.
When I talked to Dusty about signing. Right, currently it is no parking from the back of. The building for Napa. Up, so I told Dusty he can and should put signs up. On the thing that's already on the books and go talk to the contractors that are parking there. I don't know that he's done that yet. He did say that putting up a sign might be tricky now that they've. Made everything nice sidewalks, so we'd have to figure out where to put it and so forth, so,
We would have to go on the other side of the sidewalk, which is now all stone built.
right, so
It'd be,
there's some trickiness to that too. Which, I don't know, maybe makes it better to put the parking on that side just for logistical reasons. You could try and paint. The road or the curb or something like that to show it.
I did, I mentioned that to Chief and he did not agree.
What?
Well, because it would give someone a reasonable. It would be reasonable to say I didn't see it and a ticket be dismissed,
People don't read signs anyway.
so.
Or
But that's
excuse, ignorance of the
so-
law, is no excuse.
But you have to be able to read it and see it.
Right,
So if it's posted and you don't see it, that's fine.
Right.
right.
If
And
it's
And I thought about this too, what other curbs or roads do we have here that say no parking? So how is a person even gonna know?
And it doesn't work in the winter.
If it's written on the road.
It wouldn't
you would
last
be
through
able
a
to see
season of
it.
salt.
So. All right,
Okay.
maybe we can schedule a thing so we can all go see it and.
Take a walk.
2 board members at a time.
Yeah,
always
well,
does.
Everyone,
Oh,
everyone brings
only
their
two,
children.
Okay, two.
What about board
With the
members'
kids.
children? Take a-
Okay.
Board members' children are fine. 3 board members is a problem.
I'm gonna put that picture in our board meeting folder, just if people want to take a look at it again.
So we can all go take a look separately,
Yeah.
or in groups of 2. And discuss this again in May.
Whenever our next board meeting, you mentioned earlier that,
That's true.
you know.
Late April,
So,
early May.
so the first week of May. I'll listen to that.
Okay, anything else for police?
Uh,
All right, now clerk treasurer.
Okay, so the general and water reserves have been funded according to the current budget year as of the 1st of April. I anticipate that the sewer reserve will be able to be fully funded 2 weeks into the next billing cycle. For water, which will be May 1st, which brings me to my friendly reminder to the public listening that if you have water balance in arrears of $250 as of April 30th, it will be levied onto your village property tax. If you don't pay your village property taxes in October, that goes onto your county tax. This is up on the website, it was mentioned in the newsletter, it's not a new policy, so just pay your water bill. The reason why it was established by the village wide to be as of April 30th means it does not include your data. So your balance, and that balance must be paid post-March by April 30th or in the village offices by April 30th, so that we can account for the taxes, which will come out June 1st. Speaking again about that water bill in May, we began the drip marketing campaign to show people what the new 8.5 by 11 full-size bill will look like. It's in the newsletter, it's a news post on the website. It's on the Department of Water and Sewer page on the website, and there's a hard copy in the village offices. If anyone thinks there's some other way that should be posted to the public, you can let us know. It will be coming in an envelope, so we're hoping that the bigger visual presence, like mail, helps you recognize it more. We'll also help the postal service not use it, just by the mechanics of postal world, not do it any fault of their own. And there again, there's no change in costs in the processing of that. We've had great feedback, people who've seen it and said, actually called in and said, thank you. This makes so much more sense. Also on that new May bill, there'll be a link to be able to see the annual water quality report for 2024, which has been completed by Dusty. It is posted on the website. There'll be a link so that every water resident can access that report. It's also in the village offices if you want a hard copy. And other things that are transparent and ready for you to digest is a new and exciting grants folder in the trustee SharePoint website. So excited. It's where you can see all the Zeb grant things to date that I have, and I'll just keep funneling new things in there so that you as board members associated with those grants can have all the information at your fingertips. Obviously, our office can help you find those as well, but just for transparency and ease. And I think that's it that I have to report.
Any questions for Jessica? Of course, we'll have our audit presentation in May.
And then you also have the materials for the audit are in the Dropbox if you want to review them.
So in general, and talked about this earlier about the NICEAG and the increase of bills. I was wondering if like the village has had complaints from local people about the increase of bills, and there is something that we should be doing as a village as well. I think she mentioned like another town having some kind of resolution, so I was wondering if that would be something that we should be considering as well.
You as board members might have heard things from your constituency. We haven't in our offices, just complaints that they don't handle the telephone pole removal well when they change poles and maybe the old one there. Yeah, but maybe, I don't know if your constituency has reached out about any of their concerns.
I've heard a number of complaints over the last few months about bills,
Mhm.
not just because they've been high, but somewhat erratic. A handful of multiple property owners who've seen huge increases on one property but not on another, kind of thing.
Mostly as landlord, not as a trustee or a building. I've heard a lot of very erratic, strange, 500% drop 1 month, back down.
And it's not like an actual versus estimate.
They don't do estimate
No.
anymore.
Oh, they don't,
Yeah,
okay.
it's all smart now. So it's-
Oh, okay.
But it seems to be very, yeah, very similar, erratic. Yeah, that's it, my sort of deference here was to the county knowing that they were moving forward with it, I don't know that we.
Yeah.
Do, I would be happy to. I need the county.
We're interested in a resolution asking the Public Service Commission to in fact investigate. It's entirely our prerogative to do that. I don't know if we carry a lot of extra weight since the county's already doing it.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
I would say. Thanks, Ann.
I know.
Very. Worthwhile endeavor, and we're saying thank you.
Okay, old business. So we have, it's unnumbered. We have a couple of items for us to take care of. So there was we were going to simply be approving our acceptance of public use right of way for the trail at 46 South Street connecting the Village Grove property in total to South Street. But at the 11th hour, there have been some additional documents that came to Guy today. One on which is the actual, technically the bill of sale for the lights themselves. Within the trail easement is the authority for the village to access the lights, but then the actual bill of sale for the lights themselves came in today. This is all in the Dropbox, but it's not numbered. And then there's also, which I have not been following very closely, there's also the language around the stormwater management agreement, which is a function of the approval that the planning board gave for the development. This, from what I understand, because again, I have not been following it closely, has been going back and forth between attorneys for a long time. What is marked final draft in the Dropbox, I should say fingers crossed, because I have no idea if there's going to be another revision to some of this. I'm not expecting it. So what I'm thinking might be the easiest thing to do is we can, guys emailed to me this afternoon, said we can approve these by simple resolution. My thought is we have effectively two resolutions. One would be a simple resolution, which we discussed at our last meeting, a simple resolution to approve and accept the easement for public access to the trail, in conjunction with a simple resolution accepting the dedication of the trail lighting. And then we could do a separate resolution authorizing me to sign. Actually, we would have to word it as a resolution approving the stormwater management agreement as as approved by village council and authorizing me to sign that. I think that'll work best, just in case there's another change. Not substantive to the village, but perhaps meaningful from a legal standpoint. That's my thought. The alternative, of course, is we can approve everything on its merits, piece by piece, as it comes to us in final form, and if anything changes, we have to. So I'm open to comments and suggestions.
The odd general question, if we authorize you to approve something or to sign something, you don't have to, do you, or is it requiring you to? Yeah, so if something were to dramatically change, you could also not sign and come back to the board too.
In theory, if I wasn't comfortable with it, then I'd bring it back.
Okay. That was gonna be my question.
Interesting follow-up. Can we direct you to sign?
Yes,
Do you then have to sign?
yes. That's straight out of village law, Article 4. If I'm directed to sign, I have to sign. If I'm authorized to sign.
There's no like moral judgment clause or something, right? Like you.
I just reread that part because of this whole thing with the contracts.
I want to be clear that I'm not suggesting, I just assumed that there would be an exception. that
What fun things can we have
authorizes-
Roden sign now?
Mayor is directed to sign.
Birthday cards, all sorts of things.
So any other thoughts on the best way to proceed? Because some of this is, I'm not being facetious. Some of this has been kicking around since September, October timeframe. So I just assume not have it be kicking around come this September, October, because of someone, an I didn't get dotted or a T didn't get crossed kind of stuff.
Well, I'll kick us off by moving that we accept the trail easement and bill of sale for trail lighting.
I'm gonna need you to speak slowly about the two, right, like how you want this worded, because that happens.
Sure.
So the motion is a motion to accept the trail easement and the bill of sale for the trail lighting as presented.
Okay, so right now what I have in preparation for this was the actual title of the dedication of public use of rights of grants and easements.
You'll have to fill that in after the fact.
But that's fine, we're still gonna use that title, okay, cool, but we're adding to that same motion, bill of sale.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So that was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I will be abstaining.
Okay. So that takes care of the easement for public use. For anyone who didn't read it closely, we're not taking ownership of the trail. It's just an easement for public use, but we are taking responsibility for future maintenance of the lighting as well as ownership of the lights themselves. Okay. Which takes us to stormwater. I think the easiest thing would be to this was part of the site plan approval. The easiest thing to do would be to let's do it this way. I would entertain a motion authorizing me to sign the stormwater operation management and reporting agreement as finalized by village council.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
second,
Any comments or questions?
Just note that I will also be staying for sure.
Understood.
Reasons stated.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That takes care of that piece. Let's see, we added solar to old business. solar conversation.
Yes, so also in the Dropbox, also unnumbered, is a VOT estimate is the bottom line. We have yet another potential option for solar, this time coming through from Mega / Constellation Energy, the folks that we get our general energy through at this point. This is largely structured exactly how all of these other options are structured, some percentage off for some number of years. The interesting thing about this there's two things about this option that I think are interesting, or maybe actually three. One is it is one contract to cover all of our electricity needs, whereas the previous one we've discussed were split into two, where the bigger uses were here and the more residential office uses were there. I like the simplicity of that. This is also through Mega, which is where we currently have our energy and will likely continue for some time after we've decided it's not worth trying to chase down contracts on that side unless something dramatic changes. And it's a 25-year term, but we can cancel with a year's notice at any point. So you're never really locked in exactly. You always, at any point, can say a year from now, we want to be out. There's actually, you can terminate even earlier with a penalty of some sort. I didn't look at the details exactly on that. So it seems fairly flexible, fairly simple. I am inclined to actually just make a damn decision to move forward because I'm tired of this whole thing and go with this option. Largely, again, because of the simplicity. You'll see here it says estimated annual savings is 5,750 and change. We're not talking massive numbers. I'm fine that I'm saying I'm interested in this more from the supporting of solar / it gives the village a little bit of extra savings, but I don't want to think about it too much longer than that because it's already been too much time of mine. If that all sounds interesting and this board is interested in moving forward, my next thought is ask Guy to take a look at this particular one. We'll probably have many of the same snarky comments, but I think I'm interested in actually just moving forward on those. And I can get back to Constellation Energy and see how we can move this forward. So that's interesting to the board. Love to hear it. And I can kind of take next steps at some point, either end of this month or beginning of next. We'll hopefully have a contract to sign and we can move forward. Any
Sounds good.
thoughts?
I'm good with it.
Yep.
Super on board, but I have one caveat,
Great.
which is actually, I forgot to mention in my report. And Ann did, but this is sort of a callback to Ann's report. But the DCFC, the fast chargers, Jaycom electrical company that we haven't contracted with, but that is working on installing those, came and met with me, Jess, Tom, Dusty to look at the sites and go through some requirements that we need to nail down. Part of that you mentioned before, there was a conversation about demand charges. So I would love to sort of mush those conversations together and see if we might, well, we have two companies kind of aware of each other's existence, see if we might extract some concession there.
Okay.
So it could be, is it still Jim? The guy from
It's still Jem, the guy from Mega, and if you want to, I
Mega?
can,
Maybe I could just give him a quick call and
yeah,
we have this other thing, is there maybe more on the
Yeah.
table for that? The demand charges are real. And I would love
Yeah,
to make
definitely.
this-
my inclination, like, appreciate the power management people. They seem very professional. They've done a lot of work for us. I mean, this is obviously part of their whole approach to business, so I'm not too broken up about it, but I find a simplicity in dealing with Mega, and I feel comfort in the fact that it's something that many municipalities are using. They're used to working with municipalities. Mega is used to working with corporations and is trying to move into municipalities. I think part of what I sense there is a little bit of that just friction maybe, or just a difference in how they're used to approaching things, and it doesn't quite translate to municipality just yet. I'm sure that what they'll get on that. So anyhow, I'm happy to, please do talk to him and I can work with Guy and get back to Jim as we go. I mean, I don't think there's. The more I think about it, I'm not sure they really have to play together much. I think they're kind of, Mega is kind of our energy. Jim is kind of our energy guy now. So we should keep talking to him as our energy guy.
I mean, I think he has, but he is acutely aware of power. I mean, he is.
Yes, yeah, so he can keep thinking that we're
Yes.
chatting with folks. And I did tell Power Management to, they've got my number. Feel free to reach out if something wild changes and they feel like they want to make another pitch to us. So.
And to be clear, I don't think there would be any real concession. I think the only concession might be that, like, hey, when your charges go up, this number will be locked in.
Mhm.
It's not, we don't have or something to that number. I think it would just be the main thing I'd want to get at them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's probably interesting to point out in lieu of us looking at this solar thing. I mean, I think in the contract, there's some amount of like, we can't use more than X percentage of their total amount. We're not really using anything. It's all amount of like, how much do they generate? How much do we get credits back for fuzziness anyhow? So I'm not particularly worried, but it's good to bring it up and see if he has any thoughts generally about demand charges and in specific about maybe this or how we might want to go about, maybe locking in on some sort of baseline for that amount, that rate type. I don't know.
And also just as a segue, you'll be getting a bunch of information hopefully very soon about finalizing that stuff. Is about, but to answer your question. Good say.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else came out of all this, that we get some solar and we realize that Mega actually, there's a person there and we should probably engage with them more often. I think they are going to ask us to update our agreement with them, which won't change anything except updating the language and becoming compliant with more recent state regulations than the last time we updated, which is a decade or more ago or whatever it was. So I think we'll have a more warm relationship with him and we can lean on him for more things. That's it for me on that one.
Okay, good. Any other items of old business?
That's sort of sheet.
New business. Who wants to talk about the Citizen Pruner Program?
So this is the same program we did last year. We had applications for a tree management program that will not take up our whole budget. Meanwhile, CCD, Cooperative Extension, applied or requested of the town of Ulysses and their CSAC committee, which is basically their climate and also incorporates their tree and green space committees. Have recommended that they pursue what's called Citizen Pruners Program through CCD. Sorry, I'm telling a story from the back. In any case, basically what the program does, what the contract does that they're proposing would be teaching citizens how to prune trees. Right. This ranges from street trees along streets. They also did some work last year on the Habitat Trail with the town by Sailor Drive. They worked with the town barns, Jacksonville Park. All of this is to say multiple meetings throughout the summer, teaching folks how to prune trees and shrubs, how to do it responsibly. I believe they have a little bit of planting. It's a program that's widely run in Ithaca. So this is basically bringing that program together. Again, the premise is that we did not use our whole forest management budget within the village. So this would be allocating up to about $1,300, a little bit less, but up to $1,300 to support half of that program, which is run through the town. We don't have any administrative burden here other than writing a check. But the question would be, do we want to allocate $1,300 or up to $1,300 for the program? I think it's a good program. They had 10 participants last year, so it's not a huge number.
It's a good number.
But it's not bad. And you would hope, right? Last year was the first program, you sort of at the time, the expectation was that it was a one-off. Now we're kind of pushing into not a one-off anymore. But I think it was fun, like I said, they were at Sailor Drive, Jacksonville Park, so they're moving around. Doing good work, teaching a lot of local folks how to do this.
Get 2 more people, that's 20% growth.
There you go. I mean, that's the nice thing about being small, it's the growth trajectory. Really.
Do you have a sense of the total cost of the program?
We would be paying that, so it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
FY 25-26 or
It
24.
would be out of our current budget year.
Yeah, okay.
Not be changing our budget going forward, and it would be out of the tree and budget line.
So we did make a payment, so bear with me, we did contribute 1,200 in June of this year.
That was out of the previous budget year, or it was intended.
Because there's 3,800 in there left over right now. So you're saying the 1,200 that was attributed in
That-
June was supposed to have come out.
It should have come out of the
23,
previous
24.
budget.
And so, given that there's 3,800s then or 5,000 still in the street tree budget for this year. You don't wanna do anything with that, you wanna,
You know, the idea is to use money from that budget line in this current budget year.
but for next,
For
their
next budget year. Yes, yes, exactly. Yes,
We're spending it this year, this budget year.
and to be clear, that was also the intent last year.
I think that is exactly what happened, but that's why it's showing up in this year.
Gotta write the check May 31.
Right.
Yeah, it has to go out fairly.
I don't have any thoughts.
No, sounds good to
Yeah.
me.
One other thing to add is that this year, the only applications we got for help with local trees, right, that tree community street tree program, the only application we got was conservatory. So generally, we would come with a recommendation, and all that kind of thing, hasn't been any real need. But I would like to approve and spend that money and give the conservatory, 225,000. 2,500, sounds weird to say. 25.
See,
So just checking in, it's a little bit higher than they're normally paying for trees.
2.5 mil.
2.5.
Hundreds.
But assuming everyone, it's higher than what they requested, so there would be a little bit above and beyond what they requested, but it feels super appropriate given all of the work that we're doing. I know we all, want to be helpful. So I just wanted to check in since it's that feel.
Which.
So it's the two trees right in front by the sidewalk there, by the steps.
Oh, the ones that have already,
Oh,
Yeah,
the
they
big,
came down months ago,
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. well, one came down.
Right, one came down on its own, but they ground the stuff, which
That's
is a
true.
big thing for the program, that they be replanted. That's one of the primary criteria, so I was very pleased.
We should have them amend their request. So that we're not
For the amount.
arbitrarily beginning
yes,
That
a
is
dollar amount that was requested.
yeah, I was just gonna say, we're sticky again.
Can you send that request to me so I can put it in the.
Well, I'll just have them submit it to you.
Okay, because I didn't see it.
You sent it.
Street tree request from the conservative? Okay, whatever.
It was a long time ago, Jess,
Oh, okay.
but I will have them send you the updated. Cool. Okay, that's all I got.
Next item of new business, we have our garbage services contract renewal. Which would be effective for the first Wednesday in June. Garbage tag prices remain the same, however, the contract price is going up. Looks like not an insubstantial increase. However, still lower than the competitor's initial bid from last year, so. There's that. Yeah. And so I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign the contract renewal for garbage services for the village.
So moved.
Comments or questions? Side with bid again. It was over a decade between bids last time. I think five-ish years is normal from garbage. We'll have to
Okay.
keep that in the back of our minds. Any other comments or questions on this?
I'll say this and then we'll never remember it by the next time we bid again, but it would be, I think it'd be interesting for us to have an opinion when we go to bid of roughly the breakdown between garbage tag pricing versus flat fee for the village pricing. I find myself interested in higher fees for those actually using the service and a little less for the general tax base. And I think that's where Redline came in versus where the other Casella was bidding. Maybe if it was made them more a little more clear, so they're not having to guess what does the village want, high or low. We might get more bids that are more apples to apples that we could compare. So, just a thought. Because I think Casella looked like they had lower price tags, but then I also think I remember us saying that the county set the tag price, then all of this is very
Tech price just happened to go up at the same time.
maybe. So maybe it doesn't matter if the county is setting the tag price. But if they're not, then it'd be interesting to be clear when we're trying to ask for bids.
But could the village, if it wanted to, have a price so that you, the user of the trash, we collected the trash from the county and then above that went to offset, so.
I'm not sure that we can.
Okay,
Well, we do oh, no, sure state doesn't.
sure, so that's what they, that's essentially their office processing fees or whatever they.
Right.
Seems reasonable that we could have a reasonable fee, right? Same thing, processing fee for your time.
You'd still have to make up the difference to the monthly contract if you didn't collect it.
I'm not sure.
I think, yeah,
There's something in the county,
It's set, you can't,
something in the county code about how trash is handled.
and what you can add to a tag price.
That's how they get to set the tag price. But I'd have to look at that.
yeah, I think that's kind of what we ran into earlier when their bid had a lower tag price and realized the county sets that, so.
If there are no other comments or questions, then all in favor of authorizing me to sign the renewal agreement with Redline Disposal for our village garbage service, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, floodplain law.
All right, I'm gonna try to take a pass at this. Been way too many emails, a lot of confusion and not a lot of clarity. Having now talked to, and you also talked to Darby, but I went back and forth an email with Darby briefly today. My impression is that the path of least resistance is to repeal and replace our very old 1987 flood management law with a model law from the DEC that has been updated for 2025. I'd love to run that by Guy, but assuming he agrees and based on whatever comments he says on the model law, I think we just move forward. My impression, I haven't sat down with them deeply, but my impression is they're largely the same, a lot of just kind of updated language, more specific language, that sort of a thing. So I don't feel particularly nervous about just updating language for a law that we're already, participating under. So I think it's maybe a lot less confusing than initially it seemed, but obviously I'd love to get guys' feedback on that. I don't know if anyone else has any other knowledge about what the heck we're supposed to do here.
Who was the other municipality that had adopted?
Lansing?
Lansing.
Town of?
Oh, that's the question I did not take. I can certainly go back to Darby and find out. She also mentioned two other.
If it is, then that means guys already picture this.
That's true too. Yeah. I have to imagine Guy has seen this with some other municipality he works with too. So I kind of assume he has a stock answer for what's his,
Just answer probably a stock draft.
yeah.
So Tom did reach out to them. Guy responded with, here's two versions of what two other municipalities have done.
Oh,
I think you should connect with Tom because I couldn't get it clear. Was that, I tried to pull him into the thread to get him to.
I've
show
tried
the
to
documents.
connect
But
with
it just-
Tom a couple times on this. I'm wondering if the fastest way forward might be just talk to
It might
Guy.
be, I just want you to be aware.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's fair. I can bring that in and say I'm
just
gonna,
put it.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
yeah, there is a. I think there was conversation. I mean, Tom did go to a training in February and did email me around then and said we should do something, and I have struggled to get it nailed down as to what it is that the thing that we should be doing. So now we're here.
Say, I have no idea what this law is in the first place, and I haven't gone back to look, so I'm not sure what we would be updating or what we would be updating with.
I don't think any of us knew that we had this law until this whole process started to kind of come to fruition. And I think the state may have reached out to Tom to say, hey, we have record of you having passed this law in 87.
Tom kicking off this conversation saying, hey, we have this law that you've heard of.
Yeah.
Update it in this way.
So a packet came to the village clerk as the records officer, and a packet came to Tom as the codes officer.
Mhm.
I consulted with Tom, he said, right, this is in my jurisdiction because I oversee the floodplain.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
here we are today.
Let me see if I can find the emails from Guy.
Okay,
And then if I can't, then
sure, I can hold up on that.
We are, everyone recognizes that there's some sense of a timeline. For the, I think I put that in.
There, yeah,
We have to adopt it by, or
I
the,
couldn't be less concerned with it.
okay. The planning department made it pretty clear, like this. is
I'm
what's happening.
sure they did,
Okay, just wanna make sure that you all was,
No, but I will find where that sits.
okay. Apparently, the records officer is my most uptight path.
Okay, any other items of new business? Second public comment period, but seeing no members of the public present in person or online, we move right along to our executive session. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel, legal, and matters subject to privacy due to the Taylor law. Matters of collective bargaining subject to the Taylor law.
So,
second,
All in favor?
Hi.
aye.